I'm doing a bunch of work on this Rosso Rubino Lusso, and I took a break from the work I've been doing on the water pump to tell a funny story. It always reminds me of this when I work on a water pump. 250 Lussos and 250 Ferrari engines can have a problem with their water pumps. They tend to leak. They're kind of like a design that's a little I don't know if it's necessarily a bad design. It's the same design of a water pump for many years, but you know, they obviously came up with a better solution on the later cars, like the Daytonas and things. But on the 250 Lusso and 250s, 330s, and some 2-valve 365s or 2-cam 365s all had the same water pump seal. And so, well, I get a phone call one day, and it's Saturday afternoon, and my phone rings, and I look at it, and it's one of my customers. I think I'll call him Frank. Well, Frank calls me. It's Saturday afternoon. I was like, oh boy, what's he up to? And Frank is one of these guys that works on his own car. He likes to work on his own cars. He said that he had a guy that helped him at his house, and occasionally he would have the guy come over, and they would do simple things on his car. Well, he had a pretty nice car. He had a 275 GTB, and pretty expensive car. And it doesn't, you know, I don't think there's any difference between. It's the same thing as working on a 250 GTE as a 250 Lusso or a 275 GTB, you know, 2-cam 275. So he called me and he says, "Hey, Tom, I got this problem. I'm here with my helper, and we're trying to change the water pump, and I can't seem to get the bolts off, the 4 bolts off of the water pump housing, or I got the 4 nuts off rather, and I can't seem to remove the water pump." So I'm looking at the water pump, or I'm thinking in my mind what's going on, and the water pump is held in with 4 studs, and once you get those 4 nuts off, the water pump housing should come off. Now, I said, be careful if you're going to do this, because you can really screw this thing up. You got to worry about the shaft. The water pump is driven off of one of the cam sprockets, and on an engine like this, if you accidentally pull that water pump shaft out, you're going to drop the sprocket that holds the chain on the front of the engine, and you're going to be in big trouble, because the only possible way, I believe, to put that sprocket and get everything timed back in is you have to pull the engine out. So, oh, you know, I know, I read all about it. I can do it. I know what's going on. My helper's here and all this other stuff, but I can't seem to get the. And I said, you know, sometimes with this water pump housing, you have to kind of, unfortunately, take a little bit of a chisel, or not a chisel, but like a scraper, and try to get it in between the body and the housing. You could just see the gaskets, and you know, you give it a little bit of tap and a pull, and it'll come out. He says, "Oh no, I've been working on this for a while, and I can't seem to get it out." And I said, "Well, you know, I can't understand. So why don't you send me a picture of what you got, and I'll tell you what's going on," because I couldn't seem to figure out what he was doing, that he couldn't seem to move it. He says, "It's not moving at all." So I got off the phone. I said, text me a picture. And these days, what's great about cell phones and all this stuff that we couldn't do in the past is you could send a picture of something or a movie, and you could get a picture immediately, and you can see it. So after I put the phone down, I got a message or an image sent to me. I opened it up and I looked at it, and I got on my phone and I called Frank back immediately, and I said, "Well, the first problem is that's not your water pump." And he said, "What do you mean that's not my water pump?" I said, "Frank, do you see any water passages or hoses or anything going to that thing you're trying to remove?" He says, "What are you talking about?" I said, "Well, first off, what he took a picture of was this pulley in the front of the engine." And I'm looking at it, and I was like, okay, well, on a regular, you know, you look at a V8 or something like that, you would think that the water pump is driven off of this pulley. And that that is the water pump. And if you look at an American V8, that tends to be the pulley driven, and it kind of looks like a body of a water pump. But on a Ferrari, that's not a water pump. That is actually just driven off. It's a inside here. There's a sprocket that the chain goes around both camshafts and then drops below here, and there's an idler sprocket in there, and that does nothing. And in fact, this is just a shaft that comes through and drives off that idler pulley and just drives the accessory belt. So I was kind of concerned because he's prying away at this little flange here, and it's not moving, obviously, because the sprocket is bolted to the shaft, which has a tapered fitting and a nut, and he's prying away at it, and it's not supposed to move. So I said, look, look a little further and look down below. Do you see the coolant hoses going to everything? That's your water pump. And there was kind of silence on the phone, and Frank kind of said, oh, well, I'll call you back. So he went back out into the garage, and sure as heck, he was pulling the wrong thing off of the car. So I kind of had a laugh and didn't hear back from him, because obviously he was working away at the wrong thing, and I kind of saved him from damaging anything more. But really kind of concerned me. Maybe he shouldn't be working on the car, or whatever helper he's got. The two of them working together could have gotten in some serious trouble trying to fix that water pump. The end of the story was that what happened was they ended up getting the water pump off. They sealed it, they put it all back together, and it leaked again. Finally, they called me, asked me to come down there to help them, and I showed them all the tricks and got the water pump to seal, and it worked. But he ended up spending a ton of time. The car was down for easily a month or so to wait for parts and then fix it and then put it back together, and then put it all back together, and it started leaking again. And look, it happens to the best of us. I mean, look, I'm doing this water pump, and I'm crossing my fingers that I got everything back together correctly, and that it doesn't leak. So it happens to all of us. But when you start out by not removing the correct thing, that's a problem. But anyway, just wanted to share that story with you. I thought it was kind of a funny story, and reminds me every time I work on a 250 or a 275 Ferrari engine, what kind of trouble people can get into. But other than that, I'm just going to continue. Break's over. Back to work. Thanks for watching.